Hi, I'm a Zcam newbie. I picked up my Zcam E2 camera maybe a couple of months ago in my travels. And what I'd like to do is incorporate it into my workflow. I normally do a cable TV show that's devoted to music, so most of what I film are concerts. They tend to run about 45 minutes, an intermission, and maybe another half hour. And I try to get a 57-minute TV show out of them. So I'm going to basically do a whole bunch of tests here to see what format I should shoot in and how I can use it in my workflow. I use Vegas Pro from Magix. It's version 17. And I'm going to fire it up right now. And I've been playing around with this Zcam test project. I can fire it up. Now I've already set up the test project. It's basically going to have a video track. I muted out the audio because I don't normally use the audio from the camera for any purpose other than synchronizing multiple cameras. I usually use a separate audio recorder to record the actual audio that you hear in the finished project. So, you know, I've heard so much about everybody talking about ProRes and how wonderful it is, and I'm wondering if I can use it in my workflow. And I've recorded test footage. These are 5-minute clips. They're all the same thing, except for this one down here, the last one. I got bored, I guess, and I aimed it somewhere else. But these first group up to here are all the same test footage. And here's the ProRes422-LT. I recorded them all in MOV format, set the Zcam to the lowest bit rate, 30 frames per second, and 4K. And I aimed it at my bird feeder. It was raining out, so I shot this from inside, and I'm actually behind a plate glass window, and occasionally you can see some reflections up here. This, I think, is part of a reflection right there, because I can see a slight change in color quality there. But what I'm going to try and do first is render a section of this. I'm going to select a 30-second region here and only render the 30 seconds because I want to be able to show it to everyone, so seeing is believing. And I'm going to render this to a 4K file. This is going to be AVC. I'm not going to go to H.265 for the rendering test. And as you see, it's 29.97 frames per second. So it's actually the same as what I shot, other than the fact that it's AVC. And the codec that I'm going to use to render is going to be the AMD VCE codec, because it's the fastest one that runs on my machine. I should tell you what my machine consists of. It's an i9 9900K, and it's got 32 gigs of pretty fast RAM, 3600 RAM, so it's pretty quick for memory. The video board is an AMD Radeon VII, which is one of the fastest that I've come across that runs on this type of architecture. So I'm going to render this and see how long it takes. And as you can see, I've done this before. I'm going to be rendering all of these over one another just so I don't fill up my hard disk with test renders. So this seems to be flying along rather nicely. And this render time is 34 seconds, which is slightly longer than the clip that I'm rendering, but not bad. Okay, I'm going to hit Control Z and undo, drop, and now I'm going to drop a different clip in, and this is the one that I recorded in ProRes422, not the LT version, the regular version. As you can see, it's still aimed at the same thing. And I will render this again. And it's off to the races. Looks like it's running a slight bit slower. I think this is a higher resolution version of ProRes. And I can see that the file is bigger. You can see that it's 22 gigabytes, 0.04 gigabytes, as opposed to 15.82 gigabytes for the LT version. And this ran in 36 seconds. So it's starting to get a little longer. And I have a feeling that that's a trend that's going to hold up. I have a feeling this one will be longer yet because I can see it's a bigger file and maybe it takes longer to pull in the bigger file. Okay. Now, as you can see, this one up here is the exact same thing done in HEVC, which is H.265. Now, I should mention that I didn't think to leave off the audio portion in recording the video until I got down to here. So this one is a little bit smaller only because it doesn't have an audio track. When I drop the tracks in, as you can see, it's not there. And this one took 40 seconds. So that's the longest yet. But now I'm going to try, let's try H.265. Yeah, this one has the audio track on it. I didn't think to leave it off. But I don't think it makes any difference because I do have it muted here. Render as, same thing. Now this one is definitely off to the races. It's running noticeably faster. And it looks like it's going to finish in less than real time, 18 seconds. Definitely less than real time. This is a 30-second clip I'm rendering. Okay, now let's try AVC. Also off to the races. Apparently the ProRes is suffering because it is not supported by any video board for hardware rendering. So as a result, it takes longer to read the files, and that is slowing down everything. And this also took 18 seconds. So it looks like the AVC and the which is H.264 and H.265 are taking the same amount of time to render using my Radeon VII GPU. The H.265 is a little bit smaller than the AVC, and these are a lot smaller than this. I'll show you this other, just to show you that the lack of the video file didn't seem to influence this render time. This is a slightly different scene. I guess I got bored. The flowers are very pretty. Very good resolution. You know, I watched all the video that I rendered before I started recording this to show everyone. And I've got to say that the H.265 looks the best to me on screen. And I'm going to pull this up the full resolution, full screen. I'm capturing a 4K video monitor here. I don't know if the beauty of my 4K monitor comes through on the rendered video that you're going to see, but it looks great to me. And when I looked at all of these, the H.265 looked better than any of these ProRes ones. And the size of the file is just so much smaller. But rendering is not the whole deal. I also got to edit this stuff. So another thing that needs to be evaluated is how good can you play these files. Now, most people, when they edit H.264 or H.265 4K video, use proxies. And the proxies make the editing very quick because it's just like you're editing a much, lower resolution, smaller file. But what you're looking at is lower resolution. So you're not really seeing, the full experience that you're going to get when you actually render it. The other downside to using proxies is it take a long time to make. If I'm shooting, 2.5 hours to get a 1.5 hour video, and I'm using 3 cameras, and I have to generate proxies, it could take me all night, and I won't be able to do anything with the footage until maybe the next day or later. So personally, I would rather not use proxies. And so what I'm going to test here is whether or not you can play these files without proxies. I'm not running proxies at this point. I could turn proxies on, but I haven't because I don't want to. So here's the ProRes422-LT file, and I'm going to see if I can play this at best full. This is what you see when you do best full. In fact, I'm going to pull it up full screen so that you can see it a little bit better. That's best full. Lots of detail there. Now, if I have to go all the way down to draft, quarter is the lowest resolution. You saw the change there. And if you want to see it up close, this is just a lot less clear. In fact, you can see all the pixelation in here. You really don't want to be editing at this unless you have to. So I'm going to come back to best full, and I'm going to see if I can play this. Now, what you need to watch is this. This is the frame rate that it's putting up on the screen, and it was not able to stay at 29.97, and the frame rate is jumping all over the place. If you don't have a video board quite as good as a Radeon VII, you're going to see stuttering. The stuttering may not be that noticeable because it's not varying between too large of a range. It looks like it's dropping down to 28, occasionally 27. Yeah, there's a 27. So it's actually not too bad. This I could probably tolerate, playing this and editing it. But let's. It's only going to get worse, by the way, when you go to ProRes HQ on your way. So this is really as good as ProRes is going to get. Let me try. Let's try this. To give you something different to look at here. I'm at best full. I saw a little blip right there for a second. Let me stop and restart. Yeah, there seems to be a slight blip when it's first loading the file. Oh, third time, no blip at all. And this thing is playing through with not the slightest bit of movement here. I mean, this is playing rock solid steady now. Well, we know that this can do it. Let's just see if the AVC one can do it. I think it can. I'm trying to remember what I got here. Yeah, a little blip for a split second when it starts. Let's see. Second time, no blip. Yeah, and this is playing rock solid steady. I would bring it up to full frame, but then you couldn't see the little frame rate number over here. So you wouldn't know if it was blipping or not. Yeah, this is pretty good. Now, I don't think the ProRes one could do that, but I don't think I gave it a fair test. I'm going to bring it back. Try it again. Well, we know that it couldn't do this. Yeah, see, it's jumping around throughout. It wasn't just a blip at the beginning. Let me try and lower this. Let's try good full. Because good full, I mean, I didn't notice much of a change there when I went. So good is not bad. Yeah, but I don't think this is quite doing it. Let's try preview full. Oops, it's over here. Yeah, I didn't notice much of a change even going to preview. I think it's because, yeah, even preview's not making it. Yeah, lots of jumping around there. See how far down we got to go here. Let me try preview quarter, because that might, no. Well, yeah, maybe. There's a little blip at the beginning, but it seems to be holding. It's continuing to see little blips occasionally. But this is not bad. Yeah, so I think if you use ProRes, at least on this system of mine, running this editor, it's not going to look as good. It's going to be harder to work with. It's going to take up a lot more space. I'm probably not going to use it. Well, thanks for watching, folks. Bye.